Romans chapter 1, and we'll look at verse 8. First, I thank my God through Jesus Christ for you all, that your faith is spoken of throughout the whole world. I'll make one observation on that. We talked earlier a little bit about Paul meaning small, and being the filth of the world, the offscouring, and so on. And grace churches are going to be like that. One of the things that happens is that although the grace churches are small and the offscouring of the world, it can simultaneously be true that their faith is spoken of throughout the whole world. That's what Romans 1:8 says. As a comparison, get 1 Thessalonians 1 verse 8. 1 Thessalonians, and we'll look at chapter 1 and verse 8. For from you sounded out the word of the Lord, not only in Macedonia and Achaia, but also in every place your faith to Godward is spread abroad. So the Thessalonians were similar to the Romans in that capacity. Go back with me to Romans chapter 1, verse 9. Romans chapter 1, verse 9. For God is my witness, whom I serve with my spirit in the gospel of his Son, that without ceasing I make mention of you always in my prayers. I want to say something here about prayer. You have probably heard it taught at one point or another that people that are truly spiritual pray 8 hours a day. And they're prayer warriors, and they accomplish great things because they pray so long. And I will just simply tell you, I believe that is unscriptural and incorrect. When people look at the phrase, for example, pray without ceasing, which Paul uses in 1 Thessalonians 5, and he uses that elsewhere. What people hear when they hear pray without ceasing is they say, well, you got to pray and pray and pray longer, and the longer you pray, the more spiritual it is. Read the verse we just read. That without ceasing, I make mention. Well, isn't the very phrase make mention brief? If you make mention of something, does that mean you go on a diatribe and you talk 4 hours about it? Or does it, the whole essence of make mention is it's brief, it's concise, it's to the point. When Paul says, without ceasing, I make mention, he's not saying, I sat down and I prayed for the Romans yesterday for 6 hours. And because I prayed for 6 hours, God's going to accomplish something. What he's saying is this: without ceasing I make mention means I prayed briefly for them yesterday, and I prayed briefly for them today, and I prayed briefly for them the next day. And he is without ceasing because he didn't quit making mention. But it's not saying, well, spiritual prayer, I only prayed for, I'll have a confession. Yesterday I prayed for Jim for only 2 hours, and I felt really guilty about it. I'm kidding. Is it somehow more spiritual if I pray for you longer? Have you ever seen people pray where, oh God, we beg you to do this and that, and it's just a bunch of wordage? Whereas when it is authentic and not for a show, you just get to the point. You see what I'm getting at? I want you to think about something with me. What men typically do is our natural instinct is self-righteousness, self-justification, a performance system. That if I do this and this and this, then I'll please God. Is that the way that your life in Christ works? Is God waiting for you to do A and B and C, and once you do all of those things, then He'll be pleased with you? Is it that, or have you already been made accepted in the Beloved? You're already accepted. What people often do, and they're taught this, is their prayer life becomes a performance where you have to do a whole bunch of things. You have to pray so long for God to hear you. And I just want you to notice, Paul says the exact opposite. When he says, without ceasing I make mention, he's just telling you that it's brief, right? That's the whole point of the verse. So what's fascinating is that men get it the exact wrong way. Look with me at Matthew 23:14. I guess I'm going to spend a few minutes on this because I want to land this point. Matthew 23:14. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for ye devour widows' houses. Now notice this. And for a pretense make long prayer. Is the long prayer in that verse spiritual, or is it actually an offense to God? It's a pretense. If I tell you I'm going to prove the sincerity of my prayer by praying longer, it's fake. Do I have to pray for you 7 times because God forgot the first 6? God, please help Jim. Please help Jim. No, God, I really want you to help Jim. You're not listening. He's not hard of hearing and he's not forgetful. That's why all you have to do is make mention. And by the way, he knew before you even uttered it. Right? Prayer has become a performance system in the way that it is commonly understood that is unscriptural, not really prayer, and in fact an offense. Look with me at Matthew 6, verse 7. But when ye pray, use not vain repetitions. Bless you, Jesus, bless you, Jesus, bless you, Jesus, bless you, Jesus. What you need to do, you need to go home and pray the Our Father 12 times. And if you pray the Our Father 12 times, not 11, but 12, then God will grant you blessing. Do you realize that's vain repetition? You're just repeating things. There's no sincerity in it. If you have the belief that if I vainly repeat this so many times and I hit that magic number, then I've hit the quota, and now God says, you did it. Now you get the blessings. 11 wasn't good enough, but 12 is. You realize that's all fake? It's vain, according to the Scriptures. Who prays that way according to the Scriptures? What does it say? The heathen. Doesn't say the spiritual. Doesn't say the wise. Doesn't say the spiritually instructed. It says the heathen think about prayer that way. Get Daniel 6, verse 10. Daniel 6, verse 10. Now, when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went into his house, and his windows being open in his chamber toward Jerusalem, he kneeled upon his knees. So he actually kneeled in prayer, which is a scriptural practice. And it says he kneeled upon his knees, then what does it say? 3 times a day, and prayed, and gave thanks before his God as he did aforetime. I would suggest to you the scriptural practice of prayer is not, I have to be in prayer 6 hours a day and I have to vainly repeat things, and if I speak long enough, God hears me. That is just a heathen view of prayer. The scriptural view of prayer is what you do is you pray without ceasing, and that you pray for people, and you pray for them the next day, and you pray for them, and you continue to pray for them. And you do so making mention, and the frequency is 3 times a day, Daniel 6:10. I think that's the scriptural pattern. I think a lot of the stuff that we've been taught is just a bunch of religious superstition.